After an exciting race in the deserts of Bahrain, Lewis Hamilton claims his 95th career win ahead of two Red Bulls on the podium, all while under the safety car. Welcome back to the Grid Top podcast. Today we'll be reviewing the Bahrain Grand Prix. Hosting today will be me, Ruby Price, and joining me, our engineering student, Owain Medford.
Hello.
Broadcast journalist, Louis Edwards.
Hello.
And CEO of the Chris Medland Fan Club, Sam Thatcher.
Hey.
So, Louis, was Hamilton ever not going to win today's race?
No. It's a double negative. I'm trying to get my head around the double negative at the beginning before I could answer that question. That Lewis was always going to win this race. The Red Bulls weren't quick enough today. The only possible challenger was ever going to be his teammate, and Bottas got a horrendous start at the first start. So it sort of left him out of contention pretty early on. So yeah, it was always going to go to Hamilton, even when Red Bull went a bit aggressive with their strategy and tried to, cut some time on Hamilton. He just responded and absolutely cruised to victory today.
Absolutely. And he just pitted for a fastest lap, I believe. Max Verstappen finished second, Sam. He'll be happy with today because he's finished ahead of Bottas by quite a lot because, he's still in a chance of getting second in the championship.
Yeah, I believe the result brings him to 3 points behind. Because Bottas got 8, so I imagine he's, 6, 7 or 8 points behind now, which is a lot closer than he probably should be. But yeah, Verstappen today, it was a classic 2020 Verstappen performance, really. He was not really in contention of catching Lewis and just way clear over the rest of the fields. Like no challenge from Perez, no challenge from Albon at all. So yeah, it was just a run-of-the-mill Verstappen performance of 2020. They did go for what looked like they were going for maybe an undercut at the second pit stop, but on the rare occasion today that Red Bull kind of screwed up one of their trademark 2 seconds pit stops. So this one was 5.1 seconds, I think, which kind of cost us any kind of chance at a real race. And yeah, it was at the front today. It wasn't the most exciting race at the front today. To be honest, it was one of those things we've come to expect this season. To be honest, but yeah, Verstappen would be happy with that. And yeah, hopefully on the next race we can have a bit more of a battle at the front. But yeah, today it wasn't great, to be honest.
And Owain, on to his teammate Alex Albon. There'll be many people arguing he inherited that podium from Sergio Perez, because whilst it was a good performance today, as Louis said before the podcast started, it wasn't a podium winning performance.
No, it wasn't. I personally think he did quite well, actually, Albon. He was there to pick up the pieces, and while he couldn't obviously challenge Perez or get anywhere near him to put any pressure on him, he still managed to, he hasn't had some of the issues that he's had in previous races where he's gone backwards through the field. He managed to stay in fourth, and I joked, it's the longest he's been in fourth all season. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think Perez actually drove in an outstanding race, and bearing in mind, obviously, Stroll before his accident kind of showed a bit of promise. The fact that Albon sort of couldn't catch up to Perez, I would attribute a little bit to Albon being Albon, but also, Perez did an outstanding job, to be honest.
That's certainly one of the viewpoints that people are going to be taking in this. Louis, on to P4, Lando Norris in the McLaren. It was a good day for McLaren today. They really showed that, they have a good car.
Yeah, I don't think you can fault McLaren at all for, what they did today. Lando got off brilliantly off the line twice, made up positions, and always looked pretty comfortable, even when Carlos did start to attack him sort of 2/3 into the race. But he always sort of kept ahead, did what he needed to do. Carlos was cutting through the field amazingly well. It looked like he got caught up a bit at the start, but yeah, from there he did well. I mean, you also have to sort of mention maybe at the start, Lando got incredibly lucky because he made contact with Ocon, I think it was, into turn 1. And if it wasn't for that red flag, I think things could have gone a bit more south for him. But, otherwise, he might have lucked out on that a bit, but otherwise he did a great job.
Mm. And as you mentioned, Carlos Sainz as well was doing really well today. Sam, we sort of questioned why he was staying on the soft when he had the opportunity to change under the red flag, but he very much proved that the soft, was a good race tire today.
Yeah, of course, initially starting from 15th on the grid, that was kind of a Hail Mary at the start. And it seemed to work out for him because obviously on the original start, he managed to gain a few places with the other people having done entanglements. So that's what got him into that position in the first place. And yeah, we saw on the restart that he was flying, to be honest. He was probably one of the quickest in the field, dispatched of everyone around him pretty quickly. And then, yeah, there was that mid part of the race where he came up behind the two Renaults who probably should have changed positions at that point. Because I think Ocon was slowing Ricciardo down. That allowed Sainz and Norris to get past them pretty easily and then create quite a sizable gap to the Renaults, which is going to be very important for the battle in third in the constructors. So yeah, it's another very good drive from Carlos today. We saw him battle with Leclerc as well, which is quite tasty considering he's going to Ferrari next year. Maybe a taste of what we're going to see there. So yeah, it's yet another kind of drive from Carlos really, where he's not really on telly that much, but we saw him do quite a few overtakes, and he just quietly makes his way through the field. So yeah, he's definitely been unlucky this season with some of his retirements and not being able to start races. So he probably should be higher than what in the championship than what he is. A good drive for him today.
And as you say as well, Ferrari will have been happy to see that he can pass Leclerc without actually hitting him, because that's been a cause of contention within Ferrari teammates over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I think Matteo Binotto will be happy to see the end of the season and to see the back of Seb, and I think it'll be vice versa as well.
Absolutely. So Owain, Pierre Gasly very much saved that safety car for him, didn't it? Right at the end, because he was going backwards.
Yeah, he was kind of saved by the burn Mailander, and obviously his tyres were going to sort of head off. Well, they were looking like they were heading off the cliff, and I think with the rate that Ricciardo was, all the other drivers behind him were catching up to him. That gap was going away at quite a rate of knots, and it's just lucked out with him that he's managed to steal sixth through obviously the way that the safety car has fallen. I think that's a good sort of. It's a slightly lucky call from the team, but sometimes you got to make those calls, and they have, and it's worked out for them. And Gasly having the ability to drive up there and making the places early on has put him into a good position, and he's managed to capitalise on it.
Now, Louis, we've mentioned the Renaults of Daniel Ricciardo and Esteban Ocon. Daniel Ricciardo in seventh, with the championship battle for third going on and everything like that, finishing behind both McLarens isn't what Renault had on their agenda for this weekend, was it?
No, it wasn't ideal, and I think they compromised themselves when they allowed Ocon to stay in front of Ricciardo for so long. I think it just cost them loads of time. Ocon wasn't that far behind Norris. He was probably around the 3-second mark behind Norris. But then as soon as they started sort of holding each other up, it allowed Sainz to come into that battle, and it did really cost them today. But I think they'll be glad that they got points down. Any points at this point is more points than racing points scored this weekend. So sort of from that viewpoint, it's a positive, but they've definitely lost a lot of ground to McLaren.
So Sam, it was a very disappointing day for Valtteri Bottas today. Obviously, as I mentioned, he's, battling for second in the championship with Verstappen, and finishing eighth is just really not part of that equation.
Yeah, we saw once again, he was on the dirty side of the grid at the start, which I think made a lot of difference to his start. And he was engulfed by at least 4 cars, wasn't he? The first start, we saw him drop down to 6th. Unfortunately, that's been a common theme of his starts this year. He's been losing places quite a lot. Yeah, and then on the restart, the first restart, he ran over some debris. Is that true? But then he had to go and change his front wing. That put him down, I don't know, it was 18th, 17th, 18th, wasn't it, behind Vettel, battling with the Alfa Romeos as well. He was behind Kimi Räikkönen for quite quite a while as well. And George Russell, pretty dismal day for him today. Another one after the last race, which is, I guess it was better than Turkey because he actually managed to score points today and
was staying in the right direction for most of it.
There wasn't spin either every lap from him today. So yeah, I say it's a better day for Turkey, but yeah, for the second driver for Mercedes, you don't expect him to be down there all the time. And I'd say he has been unlucky this season because he's had a few tyre failures. In Imola, he picked up that massive bit of debris from Seb's car. So yeah, I think he'll be happy to the end of the season. To be honest, yeah, today he kind of just looked like a kind of a man defeated, and we saw him yesterday as well, qualifying. He had no idea how Lewis was so much quicker than him, which kind of speaks volumes really. So yeah, he just wants the season to end, I think.
And another driver as well to benefit from the late safety car because they were reporting another puncture in his rear tyre. So easily could have been 9th, potentially 10th if it hadn't have been safety car conditions.
So yeah, I don't know. I've done no idea how that puncture came about. Might have just been from tyre wear maybe. Because I don't. Did he only have two stop? I'm pretty sure he did. Most of the drivers did. But yeah, no. As you say, lucky to even get points at the end then with that safety car.
Now, Wayne, Esteban Ocon obviously was going well. I think Crofty on Sky said that, it was kind of like the Ocon that we saw before his year out or 2 years out. But, again, down in 9th, had to move out the way of his teammate. Happy to get points, but, not the kind of performance they wanted.
No, yeah, they'll take the points, obviously, and in a sort of topsy-turvy race, especially where he was in the field, it could be easy to get caught up in someone else's accident. But yeah, Daniel Ricciardo was faster than him. He just hooked it up a bit more, and Ocon, like I say, had to be behind, and unfortunately, he just had to fill that number 2 driver role. I don't know what to think of it really, because he's kind of he's in the points and everything, and that's about roughly where the Renault is in the championship. But it's just kind of, it's kept him in touch with Racing Point ahead, but they're going to be wanting more point, and they've sort of been gifted the smaller gap they've got now just by the events that have befallen them. So yeah, I just don't. It was kind of run of the mill race for him, I think.
Definitely. And Louis, a Ferrari in the top 10, Charles Leclerc obviously inherited it because of Perez, but he was certainly punchy at the start of the race, wasn't he, Charles Leclerc?
Yeah, he was getting moves done. He was getting his elbows out. I know Seb didn't like it very much, but he was just doing what he needed to. He needed to get as high up the order as possible. But after the initial sort of burst of energy, reality sat in pretty quickly for Ferrari, and they just dropped back through the field. They've had this problem with sort of overheating their tires, and the mediums just weren't working for them. And we just saw them drop down, and he, as you said, he's kind of lucked into that point, because I don't think Ferrari did deserve any points from today's race.
Definitely. So the first of the non-points, Sam, Danny Kvyat involved in both incidents at the start of the race. Granted, there was an hour between them, so he might have forgotten about the first one, but it just wasn't even finishing 11th. It wasn't a good race for Danny Kvyat today. Yeah,
the first incident, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about later, that's definitely not his fault at all. Yeah, the one with Stroll, I think a 10-second penalty, what he got was quite a harsh penalty, to be honest. I think that was more of not a racing incident, but I think a 5-second penalty would have sufficed for that. I think maybe the fact that Stroll went up and upside down maybe caused them to give an extra penalty. I don't know, but I think that was a bit harsh, because Stroll, I did just kind of turn him. He didn't really. I don't know if he checked his mirrors. I didn't even see him, but he kind of just turned into the corner, expecting no one to be there, and Kvyat was there. So I think that 10-second penalty was harsh. I think it was a 5-second penalty, not a 10-second penalty. And that, but to be fair, he's still come back from that pretty well. He's managed to finish ahead of the likes of Kimi and Russell, who before that pit stop he was behind. Ahead of, and then due to that pit stop he went behind went behind them. So he's managed to claw that time back, and I don't know how far he was behind Leclerc at the end. So yeah, but I think people will remember today for Kvyat being involved in both collisions. And I don't think he can really be blamed at all for the first one, and the second one he's got to take a portion of the blame for. But I think it was a harsh penalty, if I'm honest.
I guess maybe it would be like, if Joel had just taken damage and was able to continue the race, maybe that's a 5-second penalty.
I guess because he
did ruin his race.
Yeah, I guess because it's took him out of the race. In the end, it's maybe deserved 10 seconds, but the actual incident, I don't think can be blamed 100% for.
So George Russell finished 12th. To say that he ended up starting from the back for the second second start of the race, the restart. 12th is not bad, particularly for a Williams that was doing on-track overtakes.
Yeah, it's just so close. It's like really hoping that maybe he'd get points, and he just hasn't because he's just been unlucky. Yeah, so he drove well because he's getting on-track overtakes, and he's in front of Sebastian Vettel and people like that. He was overtaking people. You think he kept Bottas for a decent amount of time behind him as well. So I can't sing George Russell's praises enough, really. So this probably doesn't come as any surprise. But yeah, he did a really good job, and then it was just a bit of a sort of unlucky incident of someone else ahead of him, away from having points. And I'm annoyed that he hasn't got them.
Yeah, when the two Renaults were fighting, I was hoping that they could kind of take each other out of the race, and that would have put George in 10th. But obviously that didn't happen in the end.
This was the type of race that if George had got points, I think it would have been suiting. We've had a car explode, a car upside down, and George Russell getting points.
Yeah, that would have made the day a lot better than what it was.
Yeah.
Unfortunately not.
So, Louis, Owain mentioned him, Sebastian Vettel behind George Russell, said the car was undrivable, from very early on in the race. It wasn't his weekend.
I'm surprised he didn't just park the car. I don't think there was much point Vettel being out there. He was always around the back. He was struggling. He wasn't, just wasn't able to make up positions. And yeah, I think he was just struggling throughout the race. It's very different from what we were hearing from him on sort of Friday, Saturday. I think he might have thought that Ferrari had sort of mucked around with his car between them qualifying in the race because it was just so different in terms of performance. But yeah, 2 races to go now for Sebastian. I'm sure he's counting the days until he doesn't have to wear red anymore, and he can probably hop into the Racing Point car. There's usually a test after Abu Dhabi, so he'll probably be looking forward to that test, getting out that Ferrari and putting on some pink.
Hopefully he'll also be hoping to not be complaining about his teammate. I would consider overtaking him. Yeah,
it was a bit of an overreaction. There was a gap, and Leclerc's entitled to go for it. Turn 1 is a tight corner at Bahrain. We all know that. We've seen plenty of incidents there from drivers just misjudging, how much space to give their other drivers. But it was I think it was a bit of a overreaction. He was, giving his team a proper, it was probably a proper debrief on the incident while going sideways through turn 4. So it was clear to see where his head was at that moment. I think he probably could have dropped the rear of the car completely if it wasn't for a red flag, because I think he was a bit preoccupied with what Leclerc was doing.
So Sam, completing the Vettel-Williams sandwich, Nicholas Latifi in P14, in a Williams again that was doing overtakes even with both drivers, Latifi will be at least happy with today because George Russell A hasn't got points, but B, he also drove pretty well to say he's in a Williams. Yeah,
to be fair, he did. Saw him fighting quite a bit with Gio today, I think, and Kimi. So yeah, fighting along with the Alphas and the Haas is kind of standard kind of Latifi, isn't it? It's a decent finish for him. 14th is probably obviously maybe it's obviously a lofted higher because of the various retirements we had of the field. But yeah, it was. Yeah, it's hard to kind of find things to say for him because he's obviously not going to be fighting with anyone that's not an Alfa Romeo or a Haas. So anything above like 16th, 15th is a really good finish for him. So fair play. And I think he's been like decent this year. I think we've probably expected him to be kind of a lot further back and not even fighting with people because of his reputation as a pay driver and whatnot. But I think he's been okay. And he's going to be around for next year. So yeah, decent race for him.
So Owain, Kimi Räikkönen P15, where Alfa Romeo basically are when there were, three retirements. But there was a portion of this race where he was driving, with a broken front wing. Many people calling that either the steward should have intervened or the team should have brought him in sooner. What was the right course of action there?
Well, I think just based on what we'd seen previously, it was kind of one of those things of it needs to it's particularly poignant on a weekend like this. They needs to be brought in. To be honest, we've all seen what happens when a front wing catches on some part of the tarmac or it breaks or fails, and that's a very scary moment indeed. And Bahrain's a fairly quick track on the straights, and we've seen that if you go into the barrier at high speed, that certain issues can occur. So yeah, I think they should have brought him in earlier than they did. I think it was probably tactical. They were probably waiting to try and get a bit more of an advantageous position. Yeah, I think Kimi sort of did okay this weekend. It's an okay race, but it's he's kind of hampered by the car, and it's sort of half the issue is that the aero of the car isn't enough to make up for the fact that it's powered by a Ferrari engine. So I think that's the best he can really hope for. A couple of retirements has put them up the order a bit, and therefore it's higher up than they normally are.
So Louis, Antonio Giovinazzi just behind his teammate in the results. Saw him doing some overtakes, quick off the start, classic Antonio Giovinazzi. To say that he's got a seat for next season, this will have just been a classic day for Gio.
What was it, Giovinazzi?
Yeah, Giovinazzi behind his teammate, but with a seat for next season, day for Giovinazzi.
Yeah, to be fair, he's always good off the start, isn't he? He's always making up places, and I think he's been a lot more consistent this year than he was last year. He's definitely improved on his craft, and I'm pretty happy to see him stay for another year. And I think it's really going to be down to how the car is next year, whether they move forward at all, and if they can get into the points. That they've been out of the three teams at the bottom, Alfa Romeo have been the best at making the most of the opportunities they have to get points. That's why they're 8th and kind of a few points clear of Haas and Williams. I think, Gio's been one of the best of the bottom 6 drivers at maximising the chances he has to get points. So, but today he was nowhere near the points today.
So Louis, whilst we've still got you, Haas will be happy that Kevin Magnussen, at least managed to bring his car home, even if it was the last of the runners and quite far down anyway.
I'll make this quick because I don't know whether my Zoom's going to cut out again. But yeah, at least one got home. Honestly, if I was Kevin Magnussen, I would have been absolutely scared to death of getting back in that car after seeing what happened to Roman. But, he'll be grateful they got to the end. I think he had a bit of a moment sort of midway through the race. He sort of completely dropped to the back of the grid, back of the order. So I'm not sure what happened. No, they didn't show any replays or anything. Yeah. So could have dropped it or something or just had a spin.
I think that was when Stroll and Kvyat came together. Seb had to slow down. I think K-Mag went into the back of Seb and that broke his front wing. His front wing. I think that's why. But I'm not 100% sure. I think that's what happened. Might be. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's for Kevin Magnussen, it's just another finish at the end of the day. He's got 2 races left in Formula 1 and deal a car which is pretty poor, so he'll be just wanting to get to the end of this season and probably enjoy doing some sports car racing in America.
Absolutely.
His wife's pregnant as well, so congratulations.
Yeah. Oh, and then first of the DNFs, Sergio Perez. Such a shame for Sergio. Today was a good chance to assert himself for that potential Red Bull seat, but
he was having such a good day. Oh, it was going so well, and then unfortunately the car expired. I don't know why he kept going, but it did make saw some very impressive. Like bearing in mind what happened today, very impressive fire. I don't know why he continued that far along, but he did, and it sort of influenced what happened in the race. But a little bit later on, but yeah, at least it sets him up for. I'm doing it. I'm taking the opportunity. My grand theory: he's going to put a new engine in. He's going to put a new engine in for next week, and then he's got 3 straights, and he's going to use that all the time, and then he's going to turn the engine up, and it's going to be great. He's going to go he'll win. He'll probably win. So yeah, back to reality. Yeah, it was just really unlucky. Apart from that, I don't really have much more to say.
That needs to not be your bold prediction for the
That's absolutely going to be my bold
Sakhir
prediction.
Grand Prix.
It's 100% being the bold prediction.
Well, no, like make it your actual prediction because that's how sure you are that it's happening.
No.
Yeah. So Sam on to his teammate Lance Stroll, Racing Point. You know, his race got turned upside down on lap 2. You know, and that was it.
No pun intended, of course. Yeah, that was lap 2, wasn't it? Yeah, forgot. Yeah, obviously. You forget it was only lap 2 by then. Yeah, so I talked about it earlier. I think he could have left more space for Kvyat on the inside. I don't think he was really checking his mirrors all that much. But the contacts obviously ended in the worst way it could for him to come out of the race, hanging upside down. He was extremely calm for somebody like who was like in a 200-mile-an-hour F1 car hanging upside down, not knowing what was going to happen. So he kind of just said, "I'm hanging here upside down" in the most calm, like Canadian voice possible. So yeah, it's been a bad. I don't know. Well, last race was good. I don't know. He started on pole, finished 8th. I guess it was okay. But yeah, he's had a few races this year where he's crashed out and it's been no fault of his own. But I think today he's got to take a bit of the blame for what happened.
So Louis, finally, Romain Grosjean, DNF, lap 1. Didn't technically complete a lap, so lap 0. But yeah, you know, we saw a complete horror crash, you know, even knowing what happened, watching replays, like, was actually scary, you know. But today just proved why the halo is such a good thing that we've got in Formula One, and you know, Romain Grosjean to walk away from that, it's fantastic, really.
Yeah, you go pre 2018, he's not walking away from that. And I think people know that he's not going to be walking away from that because the halo is the first thing that's gone into the barrier, well, apart from his car, but front end of his car, but the halo is the first thing that's gone into the barrier there to push the arm coat around his head. And it's honestly that crash, when it first happened, I was stunned just by the fact that car has gone up in flames, because that is not something that we ever see in crashes really in Formula One anymore. And the fact that it was just a big fire, and it was honestly amazing when they said that it was out and it was okay, because honestly, it was scary. I will be honest, I was completely shook when it happened, because I immediately thought the worst, especially when you see a huge sort of ball of flame coming out of that car, and the fact that it's torn itself in 2. And yeah, I don't think words cannot sort of describe just how amazingly sort of the fact that he's managed to get out of that car safe, you know, with some minor burns and the suspected sort of cracked, broken ribs. That is honestly incredible. And hopefully he's fit enough to be in the car next weekend. It may not be likely if he has done something to his ribs, but we can only hope for the best.
Absolutely. And it was enough to earn him driver of the day, according to the Formula One viewers. So on that note, who is, our driver of the day? Owain?
Oh, why'd you have to come to me first?
You're the next person to talk to.
I'm going to go with... I'm not going to go for Grosjean. I'm going to go for Albon for not throwing away a podium.
Of the day.
For not throwing away a podium.
To be fair, he never really had his hands on the podium with which to throw it away.
Yep.
Sam.
Yeah. Can I just talk about Grosjean for a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah. It looked like, as Louis said, when I first saw that crash, I thought I thought he was gone, because I've only been to F1 for about 3 years, and I've never seen that kind of thing like live. So yeah, it was quite a shocking thing to see. And yeah, I thought like when they didn't show any pictures of it for like a minute or so, I thought, oh my god, what's happened to you? But no, it just shows how amazing the safety is nowadays, that he's been able to walk away from that crash, having been engulfed in flames for about like 10, 15 seconds. And the fact he managed to like get himself out of that car was amazing. And yeah, credit to the medical car driver and doctor. Is it Vandermeer? I can't remember his name. I think his last name is Vandermeer, the driver of that car, to get there and get him out of that fire was pretty incredible. So yeah, hopefully that's not his last kind of outing in F1, because it would be very sad if it is. But the fact that he's alive, that is amazing. So yeah, driver of the day, I don't know. It's a difficult one because there wasn't like many standout performances today. Come back to me in a minute. Go to Lewis.
Okay, Lee.
I'll think about it.
I'm going to give mine to Carlos Sainz. He started at P15, coming through to P5, drove an amazing race. His battle with Leclerc was honestly some absolutely brilliant racing. Then he, completely swept past both Renaults. Yeah, he's hands down my driver of the day.
And for the exact same reason, Carlos Sainz is my driver of the day. That battle with Leclerc gave me flashbacks to the 2014 Duel in the Desert style like racing, and seeing them two in the same machinery next season is going to be amazing. Hopefully, it's a shame they're doing it in a Ferrari and not a McLaren, but that alone, Carlos Sainz driver of the day. Sam, please tell me you've got one.
I'm going to go with Sainz as well, because I think, as you said, he was definitely kind of the standout performer, but I don't think really anyone else kind of had a I don't know, but if Perez finished the race, I probably would have gone Perez today, because obviously he was in control of third the whole race before his car blew up. But yeah, Sainz from coming from like 15th on the grids, managed his tyres excellently, did some great overtakes, as you said. So yeah, I think it's got to be Sainz really today.
Absolutely. So if you're watching on Facebook, make sure you stick around for the post show. And if you're not watching on Facebook and you're listening to the podcast in audio format or video format just later, make sure you do like the F1 Chronicle Facebook page to watch these as we record them. Get that exclusivity. But yeah, we are now available on Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Omni Studio, and Pocket Casts. Just search F1 Grid Talk. There's a huge back catalogue of shows with previews and reactions to the qualifying and race results. We're on Reddit. Just search for the subreddit F1 Grid Talk. And we also have a Patreon for mics, lights, and better equipment for our presenters. We'll be back tomorrow to preview the Saka Grand Prix weekend, which is just at Bahrain again. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. And goodbye.